All right. So I am from the School for Field Studies. We're an environmental field-based study abroad organization located just north of Boston, Massachusetts. And we were founded over 40 years ago, shortly after the very first Earth Day, by a group of people who wanted to form an organization with the mission of educating the next generation of environmental leaders. And they believed the best way to do this was to get college and university students out into the field at a kaleidoscope of research stations across the globe to learn field research skills, to learn about the most pressing environmental issues of the time, so that they would then have good scientific practices to inform good policies to find solutions to some of the most pressing and critical environmental issues of their time. So students often ask, what is a typical day with SFS like? And this would be one example. So in December, back in Kenya, taking this photo of the students forming these fences with beehives. The reason they were doing this was because they had spoken to a lot of the local farmers about what their most pressing environmental issues were. And they said that it was this increasing human-wildlife conflict. Elephants were changing their migration patterns to find new watering holes as a result of climate change. But by doing so, they were trampling a lot of the agricultural products from the farmers. That was, of course, hurting them financially. So farmers have been putting up these fences, but that would then just change more migration patterns for more animals, worsening the problem. So students did a lot of research in the field, came up with the solution of these beehive fences. The reason being the elephants are terrified of bees, so that would keep them out of the farmers' fields. And then the honey from the beehives would actually produce this secondary source of income from the for the farmers. So that kind of research, field skills, and community reciprocity is the hallmark of any SFS program. So we're located in 10 locations around the world, and we try to mirror in our academics what we are seeing in the ecosystem. So in East Africa, Tanzania, and Kenya, some of the great national parks, it's a wildlife management program. Whereas in the Diantree of Australia or the Amazon of Peru, it's rainforest studies, marine studies on the Atlantic Ocean, and the Turks and Caicos, mountain ecology in Bhutan. So the structure of any SFS program for a semester or a summer session is very similar. The actual academic focus will be dependent on the local ecosystem. It's a center-based model. This is key for students to know about. It's maybe not exactly what they sort of initially envisioned for study abroad, but 20 to 24 students from colleges and universities from across the country would all be living at each of these centers. So if you do the Panama program, you are at the Panama Center in the top left-hand corner. Turks and Caicos Marine Studies, bottom right-hand corner. That's where you would be staying. So the students are all living with each other, and very often faculty and staff from the program will live there as well or right nearby. So there's a real residential feel to the program. I like to tell students it wouldn't be uncommon to say, eat breakfast across from your ecology professor one day discussing that week's research project. So who lives at these centers? It's a center director. She's in charge of essentially everything. 3 faculty members, 90% plus have PhDs in their field. And these 3 faculty members will be teaching the 3 primary courses on a semester program, and then divvying up with students for the research project. The SAM, Student Affairs Manager, she's essentially in charge of all student health, safety, and security. Whenever I talk to alumni, they always want to talk more about the SAM and just how supportive and meaningful their presence was. I'll hear that the SAM would wake up early at 5 a.m. one morning to bake cookies because she senses that the students are feeling a bit homesick. And also I've heard of SAMs setting broken bones in the Amazon and even saving a life a couple of years ago in Tanzania when a student had an allergic reaction to something that they had no idea that they were allergic to anything. Sam came over with the EpiPen and helped the student. Support staff, very often kitchen support staff will be coming in and out, creating the meals for the students every day. The facilities, the thing to know is they're going to be more rustic than you're used to at your home university. In the Turks and Caicos, for instance, there's only one freshwater shower a week. In Costa Rica, there's only cold water showers. You're very often living in these bandas, maybe 4 students in them, sometimes larger bandas, there'll be more students. So it's going to be a little more rustic. The internet's probably going to be slower, but the benefit is, say, in the Kenya program, the center, bottom left-hand corner, Mount Kilimanjaro is your backyard. Turks and Caicos, you can be in the Atlantic Ocean within 10 seconds of waking up. So more rustic, but more memorable. A semester with us would typically transfer back to your home school as a semester of credits, but you would always want to work with your home school study abroad organization to see exactly how to make sure you get all the correct approvals. But semester program, there's 3 core courses. 2 are typically the more hard science, ecology, NRM. And then 1 would be more of social science, so socioeconomic policy. And then that would all lead up to the final course, the directed research course. In the places where English is not the primary language, so all of our programs minus Australia and Turks and Caicos, there's a shorter language culture course as well. In the summer, these are 1 course programs that last for 4 weeks, and you can do summer combined. So you would do session 1 and session 2 in the same location. Or you can do just session 1 or just session 2. The programming and coursework are different between the 2. So the hallmark, I think, of SFS is our directed research. It's what we're best known for. Students will often ask, do they need prior field research skills to do the program? The answer is no. The benefit of the directed research is that there's a framework in place for you. So for every semester, we know exactly what the students need to accomplish in terms of research. At the end of every semester, we would then be filtering students into these 3 research sort of vectors. Some are much more biological, some are much more anthropological or social sciences, depending on the student interest. And in the 10 weeks prior to this, you are learning a lot of the field research skills so that you can hit the ground running once the research starts. The other big thing is that you can't do exactly what you want, so it wouldn't be completely independent like some providers might have. It is directed by community environmental needs. So before we start any program, we work with community stakeholders for about a year or 2, learning what their most pressing environmental scientific needs and requirements are. And then we follow through with the research and then actually present it back to the community at the end. That's the form of reciprocity so that they can use that data to ensure a more sustainable future. Admissions, for pretty much every provider, it's different than applying to your undergraduate institution in that providers would work on a rolling admissions basis, so applying early is in your benefit, while of course meeting all the internal deadlines at your home university. It's a pretty easy process. There's essay questions, 2 references, 1 academic, 1 personal, a transcript, the approval form from your home school, and then a 30-minute interview with our admissions counselors, all of whom are SFS alumni. And that really provides like a great opportunity to ask any questions that you have. Financial aid, I always encourage students to apply. As an environmental nonprofit, it's our goal to make this a reality for all students, and it's our goal to make it cost equivalent to staying at your home school. So I will give you a quick run through of some of our 10 programs and what makes each one unique. So Australia is, along with Kenya and Turks and Caicos, our oldest program. So we've been in Australia now for over 35 years and been in this one town for that entire time as well. It's probably our most rural program. You are a 20-minute bus ride from a town of just 1,000 people. So you're definitely out there, but the benefit of the program is you are living by the Diantree Rainforest, which is the oldest primary rainforest in the entire world. When I talk to alumni, the thing that they say most often to describe the Daintree is prehistoric. You see ferns that are 50, 60 feet up in the air. You see moths the size of your two hands combined. It is completely like a land before time. It's also a great program if you like getting your hands dirty. So while the Daintree exists there, it exists in a patchwork formation. And so the students will actually do a lot of reforestation projects. Bhutan is has the population half that of West Virginia, yet it's located between 3 billion people, India and China. So what Bhutan is now facing is how can they keep this sustainable sort of culture that they've created over centuries while having the forces of modernization and globalization at their doorstep. It's one of our most unique destinations in that it was a Buddhist kingdom, but a few years ago, they've now switched to becoming a small-scale constitutional democracy. So you'll be witnessing culture that's 1,000 years old while you're also witnessing a country being born politically. It's known because it was the last capital city, Thimphu. Bhutan had the last capital city without a working traffic light. They actually put one in, people didn't like it, so they're still the last capital city without a working traffic light. They don't have gross domestic product to measure the number of widgets created by the economy. They have gross national happiness to measure the well-being of the citizenry. And in terms of environmental policy, they're unique in that they actually enshrine it in the national constitution. So 2/3 of the country must always remain forested is actually the highest law of the land. And Bhutan, along with our Cambodia program, are the two programs of our 10 that I usually encourage more social science students to focus on. On either program, you're going to be learning Buddhism, economics, political science, anthropology on any given day, in addition to biology and environmental studies and sciences. Cambodia is our most urban program. You're in Siem Reap, a town of 150,000 plus people. So you are at this SFS Research Center, but you go into town, 5-minute tuk-tuk ride, and you could be having coffee with people from around the world because they come here to witness this picture, Angkor Wat temple complexes. Cambodia is a little tough, I think, for some students because whereas in Bhutan, it is going to be the first carbon neutral or negative country on the planet, Cambodia, there's a little more issues of species extinction, corruption, pollution, litter, poverty. So it can be a little tough for students because there's no easy solutions to any of these things, but it's good for those students who want a wide variety of challenges. Costa Rica is our environmental studies program through and through. We'll study all aspects of environmental studies in multiple different ecosystems, studying national park management, urban ecology, hummingbird ecology and behavior. It's a great program for students who are interested in birding. Along with Bhutan, it'll be a carbon neutral country. It'll be the second one on the planet. So again, it's one of these programs where there's a lot of competing issues of increased tourism, urbanization, but you're also setting a lot of the environmental policies of how the country's pursued a sustainable future. It's interesting if you like agriculture and farming. There's a Rainforest Alliance farm at the center on site. So pigs, chickens, a variety of greens, oranges, mangoes that you would be eating on any given day is actually coming from right outside your doorstep. It's part of actually the morning breakfast routine for students to pick oranges from the trees, make orange juice. And then there's usually a fierce debate amongst the students whether they should add sugar to it or not. Kenya, of all the places I've visited with SFS, this to me strikes me as one of the most magical locations. It's partially the wildlife that just exists around the center. You can see them just when you wake up in the morning in your bandas. It's the community. Maasai will come to welcome the students at the beginning of every semester or summer session by dancing, having a goat roast. And I think a big part of it is that Mount Kilimanjaro right there exists just a few miles from your doorstep. So Mount Kilimanjaro is the tallest peak in all of Africa. It's 20,000 feet high, and it just rises up immediately from the African plains. So while the center's only at a few hundred feet, 20,000 feet is looming right above you. So it's a wildlife program, just like our Tanzania program, but the Kenya program focuses on not just wildlife, but the surrounding ecosystems and the surrounding communities. So it's good for those students who want African wildlife, but also want to learn a lot about African culture as well. Panama, we call surf and turf in the office because it's half marine systems and half rainforest studies. When you wake up at the center within 10 seconds, you can be in the Caribbean waters, snorkeling, paddling. Or if you go the opposite way, you can be in the Panamanian rainforest. There's one really cool excursion that students do where they actually witness the sun rising over the Caribbean Ocean. They traverse through the country, visiting these different ecosystems on the same day, seeing some of the wettest parts on the entire planet to some of the driest parts on the entire planet, and then actually witnessing the sunset over the Pacific Ocean. Tanzania, our second wildlife program, and this would be the one that's more for like pre-vet students. You're studying the wildlife full stop. Whereas the Kenya program, you're studying wildlife in Africa. Tanzania, I think it's more wildlife, and it happens to be in Africa. The wildlife's incredible. The center's located about 20 minutes away from the great national parks of Lake Manyara and Ngorongoro Crater. You'll go up into the Serengeti for a week of camping to witness wildlife in the Serengeti. And the Tanzania program will go up to the Kenya program for 2 weeks at the same time that the Kenya program will come down to the Tanzania program for 2 weeks. So whichever program you choose, you would actually see both countries. I remember this program because when we were about 20 minutes away from the center on the highway, we had to stop because zebras and giraffes were just crossing the road. That's how up close that the students are with the wildlife. So finally is our Turks and Caicos program. This would be for students who want marine studies, marine biology, pretty much every day. So Panama, there is that marine component for half, but it's mostly snorkeling. Turks and Caicos would be diving and also snorkeling. So if you are a diver or you wish to get certified, this would be a great program. You go out into the ocean pretty much every day to study marine life. We went out there a few summers ago, went out 4 or 5 times. Each time saw sharks that were 6 to 8 feet long, rays with the wingspan that were 6 feet. You can see clear to the bottom in many locations, 60 feet down. That's how pristine the water is. Yet the coral formations rise up almost to the surface, so you feel like you're floating over these polychromatic mountain ranges. An interesting part of Turks and Caicos is that there's only one belonger, what folks from TCI are called, with an environmental PhD. So there's not a lot of government environmental research that's being done. So SFS in some sense can actually serve as the environmental think tank of the nation. So when students have completed their research and are presenting it back to the community at the end of any semester, government ministers will often fly in from Grand Turk, the capital, to listen to the student research and then using that data to inform national policy. So students' scientific research in the past has informed where TCI has placed marine protected zones. It's informed whether they believe there's an overfishing of grouper, whether they should have a ban on the export of conch meat. All that has come from student research. So with a semester with us on this program or others, you would bring back to West Virginia University a semester of credits. You would gain these field skills in these biodiverse, iconic ecosystems. But at the same time, you would have done something good. Your research would continue to have a lasting and sustainable impact in these communities across the globe. So That is what we do at the School for Field Studies. Again, always meet with your study abroad organization, your study abroad office at your home school to learn more. And you can also contact us at fieldstudies.org, our website.
Great. Well, I have a question for you.
Yes, you there.
Yes. So yeah, sorry, I'll bring my camera on. There we go. The courses that you have, like during the day, I know it's a lot of field work and everything, but is it a combination of classroom and field work, or is it mostly field work? How, like during the day, like you're there obviously for 4 weeks, say over a summer course. Is it 8 hours a day? Is it like, what does that look like?
Yeah, it's a great question because it's something that we always try to impress upon the students before they go, in that the amount of coursework is going to be far more than they're used to at their home school. Mm-hmm. So on any given program, you're likely getting up around 7 in the morning, having breakfast, and then it's into the field or into the classroom. The academic day is probably ending around 6, having dinner, and this is happening about 6 days a week. Okay. So semester programs, there's typically a week-long break at the midpoint, but other than that, there's not a terrible amount of free time. You might have that 1 day a week, usually Sundays, to go out, but even then there might be some community interaction activity that we're doing. So it's far more structured than you're used to. It's far more time consuming. And then in terms of how much is classroom and how much is field work, it's at least half your credit hours will be spent in the field. So we're not bringing you to Bhutan or to Patagonia to just sit in a classroom. It's going to be out in the field, but there would still be some coursework stuff. There's just some stuff where it's far easier for us to deliver that in like a quieter classroom lecture setting.
In the middle of the wilderness, yeah.
Yeah, it can be a little tricky if you have 24 students on a single track. You want to make sure that the student at the very end can hear you as well. So you'll be learning in the classroom, then we'll bring it out into the field.
Okay, great. That was my question.